Council meeting to order for November 18th in regards to city manager interviews. I don't think we need a motion to adopt it at all. So we'll go ahead and I'll turn it over to Mark.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we have in front of you is Mr. Willie Morales, and he will be the second candidate interviewed for this position, and there'll be two more to follow him. Mr. Morales has approximately 45 minutes for the 19 questions, and as we talked, it will be incumbent upon him to make sure that he's concise enough with his answers to be able to make sure he gets done in that 45 minutes. So as we did last time, if the council would please introduce themselves and maybe let the candidate know how long you've been on council, and then the candidate will have plenty of time to talk about himself and his experiences. And if we could still just kind of take a question at a time and rotate around. And if you need any additional follow-up questions or a little bit more, dig a little bit deeper, but obviously that's well within your prerogative as a council. And I think that will pretty much will cover everything. So we'll turn it over to you,
Okay.
Mr. Morales.
Welcome, Willie. Mayor Furlong, and I've been I was a council member for 10 years and been mayor for the past 3 years. And we'll go around this way. We'll leave him for last, so.
Hi, Willie. Welcome. My name is Lisa Wong. I am a newer council member since January, so been in St. Paul or North St. Paul about 6 years now. Thanks.
I'm Candy Peterson. Welcome, Willie. I'm in my third term as council person.
Scott Thorson, second term.
Tim Cole, still counting the months.
Newbie. So welcome, and we have 19 questions for you. I'll start out with the first one, and we'll work our way around in a circle and end up with the 19th. I believe Councilmember Thorson has the last one. So just relax and enjoy the interview, and I'll go ahead and start with the first question. Please tell us what interests you about this position and highlight key qualifications that make you the best person for this job.
In my experience, I've been very fortunate and I'm humbled by the communities that I've served. I've had the awesome experience and the generation of gray hairs to build communities' operations from the inside out. In particular, my background in getting communities out of receivership is particularly key in being able to do this work. I've mainly served smaller communities. Smaller communities typically have issues with their finances and procurement and issuances and learning when not to touch their enterprise funds and when to touch their enterprise funds and how to do that. I am very impressed by the city of North St. Paul here, how you have your finances together. Your comprehensive financial presentation is impressive. I like that you already have, as a matter of routine, quarterly reporting. That's not something I'd have to push and fight for. I like that it's clear your financial narrative matches what you're saying as council people. And I really, really like the decisions that have been made to develop housing and things of that nature here. As a community, based on your financial statements, I can tell you're a little victim of your own good performance. You have to perform now at the moms and pops level because you've run out of tax space. I mean, that's something that I'm really good at generating so that your taxable net tax capacity matches your interest. And that's something that I can bring as a candidate to the role of city manager.
Thank you. I've got question 2. Can you please describe your leadership and management style?
I would say that I'm adaptable. You know, one formula doesn't necessarily match a different formula. For example, I'm in a city, a statutory Plan A city with a population of 1,392. I report to a city council, and yes, there's ordinances that have separated my operational management from my city council, but it's still statutorily a Plan A city, which is different than this city, which is statutory Plan B. It's an established city manager. So my approach is adaptable, but in terms of how I perform my role, it starts with the integrity process. You know, I will never forget the lessons that I learned in Sandusfield, Massachusetts. Very experienced city clerk, over 22 years of experience, over 2,000 hours of PTO, never took a vacation. And anybody who gave a directive to this individual who was elected in that state, by the way, was rebuffed. But what they didn't pay attention to was the fact that this person was always working. So I did the work. I got there before her and I left after, and did that for about 6 months. And then enough routine rapport was established to where my suggestions were then listened to. I think with my experience, having learned to do all the role from the bottom up, it helps me to help you as city council frame what you need from your department heads and vice versa.
Describe how you would build trust with the city council and staff.
City councils, I never want to be an elected official because you can't go to the store without people asking you what you're doing, right? The way that I would fail you is this. If you don't have symmetrical information, if you don't have timely information about how your department heads are performing and about how my office is integrating into that performance, then that's how I would fail you. How I would help you perform as a city council is by anticipating what your questions are going to be. You know, in my experience, city councils, especially if they have very good business acumen, the expectations with regard to financial statements, for example, not knowing how your budget translates to GASB 34 and how those financial statements work in relation to your fund financial statements, which are not the same thing, what people think they are. What I work with the city council right now is I make sure that you have the tacit knowledge to hold me accountable. That's tough because I'm teaching you essentially how to fire me all the time. And it's important that you know what my role does so that you know what the staff and department head level does as well.
Please describe your involvement in the budgeting and financial process of your organization, as well as your experience with long-range financial planning.
I call it the adrenaline rush. So when I started in City of Appleton, they didn't have a structured financial planning. I initiated that, interviewing with department heads right away. I believe that planning for financing for the next year starts as soon as you finish planning the previous year. Collecting all of that data, putting it into a presentable format, working with the department heads to identify what they want, how they want it, and to identify funding sources, and to also identify how those funds or requested items, how they translate to the taxpayer. That's really important because people will follow you into the store and ask you what you're doing with their tax rate, and you have to be able to answer that question. And it's a tall order, and you're never going to do it 100%. No one's ever going to be happy with you 100% about your tax rate, I'm sorry to tell you. But with the department heads, when we put that together, it involves a lot of back and forth, then we together present to the city council. And we say, these last couple of months, we've identified these needs. These are the funding structures, or rather sources that we want for this. What do you feel? What are your overall goals? So working really hard to make sure that department heads align with the city council's goals for that particular coming budget season is important.
Councilmember Cole.
What was the most creative initiative or project you completed either in your current role or your past job?
In this current role, well, there's so many things. Right now, I got them broadband. I was able to leverage the issues and the real impacts of COVID-19 on our small community to get them a major $3.6 million grant from HUD Indeed for broadband and commercial rehabilitation. So that's a numbers one. But the most creative one, and the one that I loved the most, was that we were able to leverage a smaller pot of money, about $88,000, also with some participation from our local banks, to create out of the American Rescue Funds a small program to help residents directly who are experiencing hardships from coronavirus. Because the hardship is not just the sickness, but time away from work. What happens. So the government at the federal level allowed those 2 weeks of PTO for it not to be deducted. But then what happens after that? So we were able to create something between legal counsel and myself, and going back and forth with the state to see how we could use those funds to help people. It wasn't always a lot of money, but if you're on a fixed income and it's less than the median, $500 goes a long way for you when you're trying to pay groceries. And I was really, really happy to do that.
You can take a water break if you want.
Okay. Does that get put into the minutes, water break?
What's that?
Water break into the minutes?
Yeah, right. Okay. Describe a time when you made a mistake at work. How did you deal with the situation, and what was the outcome?
In the city of Appleton, we were in a meeting, and the meeting was recessed, and the mayor and I and a couple of city council members, a statement was made, and we laughed about it, and the city clerk put it up by accident, even though it was clear, don't put it up. The way I dealt with it was head on. This was our mistake. It wasn't supposed to be done, and we're sorry about it. If I wanted to work in a field where you can avoid the public, I would not work in a field where you must engage with the public. We are humbly at the service of the public. And where you make mistakes, you really can't try to hide them. It consumes all of your integrity if you try.
Thank you. Councilmember Wong.
Okay, I'm on question 7. Do you consider yourself to be a proactive person? Provide an example of time when you were proactive in solving a small problem before it turned into a major problem.
Yes, I'm more of a dancer because sometimes proactiveness requires you to measure twice before you cut because we're dealing with public funds. But right now, our stationary aerators in our water treatment plant, they're beyond their useful life and they're starting to die. So I started getting these quotes, and this is just very practical things for floating aerators, speaking with our water operators and wastewater operators, and speaking with city council to understand how it is that you deal with the procurement requirements of Minnesota statutes 471.345. So, because if you're meeting different thresholds for costs, the process is different. So preparing the staff for what that process is proactively is a manner of being proactive. Because otherwise you'll go into the wrong process and you'll get in trouble with compliance with the laws.
Describe the efforts you would take to enhance redevelopment and/or residential growth in the city.
With residential growth and enhancement, you first got to take stock of what's there. So being new to the community, there would be a lot of listening and learning about what the values are for the community in terms of what they're willing to dance with a little bit. I managed 2 communities at the same time once, and they were about 3 miles away from each other. And the difference from one community to the other and what they value was over. One community was willing to do a shared service just for fire department. The other one, hell no. One community would share garbage services. The other one was no. So it would take some time to learn your community, what's important, to then try to strategize what to enhance. Because I as a newcomer, I can't come and tell you, hey, you have to enhance this, because it may not match the culture of the community. So some of that is a listening and learning.
How would you reach or serve diverse groups or traditionally underserved populations within our community?
You know, we're living in such a modern age, I don't think you can do anything without having a social media presence. Make sure that some of your social media is catered towards populations that maybe don't feel represented. With the senior population, though, no matter how much you rebrand it, technology doesn't necessarily always reach them. So I think putting programming that happens in senior growing communities and highlighting areas that the city has developed for those communities. I know that there's a retirement community coming up soon and a memory care kind of thing going on. Those are qualities that you want to highlight that will attract that community, make them feel served. Sometimes when we think about underserved communities, we think about particularly punctuated communities, but you know, we have underserved communities in every part of our society. Sometimes it's at a real individual level. So the approach really is to have a unified presentation. Our online presence and where we host programs, that's important. That's a good way to do things. You know, in other communities, this community is a little bit bigger, of course, but sometimes having council members have functions in different parts of the community or have a meeting at your fire hall or, you know, show off the different non-formal, if you will, qualities of the council in the city.
Describe your experience working collaboratively with other units of government or organizations, and then describe how building these types of relationships benefit the community or organization you work for.
The city of Appleton is a member of Swift County. When I started City of Appleton, the city of Appleton got the county fair, and the city of Benson has the county seat. And that is also where the county administrator and the county commissioners are at. And so there's always been this kind of rivalry. My city's residents sometimes feel underappreciated. When I came on, there was a permit by rule process that the county has started on one of the sites in the Appleton. Permit by rules where the MMPCA gives you permission to kind of dig up, excavate a big hole and then deposit debris into it. Unfortunately, there were some procurement issues that the county experienced with trying to get a vendor to do the excavating, all of that. I saw an opportunity there to help. I have a lot of expertise in procurement, and I fixed the situation. And then I called the state. We worked to extend the deadline so that the city of Appleton was able to demolish 17 properties that were blighted, put in there. And then one of the smaller communities in the county was also able to demolish their city hall and put it in there. So that went really far to repair those relationships with our county. It's integral to be able to work with other units of government, because if you can't, then you're all alone on the ledge, and it can be really scary to do these jobs. You need somebody on your side to be able to say, hey, I can help you. And so it was my pleasure to help the county administrator in that instance. And 17 properties in a small community like Appleton to get rid of, that was a big deal for us.
Describe how you would become involved in the North St. Paul community.
You know, in a small city, keeping a little bit of professional distance is requisite because of the size of it. If they see you having coffee with somebody, they think you're adapting policy because how small a community is here. In a slightly larger community, I'm looking forward to being able to have coffee and go and meet with people and chat with people. I like to have fun. I like comic books. My original life was as an opera singer, not in public administration. I actually graduated high school with Nicki Minaj. I went to an arts high school. So I'd like to get involved there, and I know you guys have this car show, and I really like Grand Nationals. It's my favorite car. I can't afford it, but it's my favorite car. I like to see that, so that's something I look forward to.
All right. Can you provide an example of how you have been a change agent in your organization?
I am in southwestern rural Minnesota. they haven't had a city administrator for 8 years before I got there. And their enterprise funds were in a negative. And they were taking money from the government, the general funds to help the hospital. And I had to stop that in order to comply with accounting laws and with professional standards. And it hasn't been easy. Sometimes being a change agent means having the steel to take the hits a little bit. And as a candidate, I'm experiencing that area because smaller communities, public policy and is sometimes second to trust in an individual. And when you're trying to transition into policies and administration, it can be difficult. So I feel like I'm a walking change agent.
In your current or previous role, what is the most difficult decision you have made, and how did you come to that decision?
The most difficult decision I've made in Appleton is when not to act. When you're in a small community and there's a lot of boards, some of them are like defunct. They haven't been operational for a long time, and they have statutory responsibility, especially on a comprehensive planning commission. As we implement a comprehensive plan for the city of Appleton, there are things that really do have to come from the elected leaders and community members. And while I can give advice and my professional expertise is at their disposal, I can't do certain things for them. And having the strength not to do it, it takes a lot. It takes a lot, but you have to trust your community too.
Describe a situation that you feel demonstrates your integrity and ethical standards.
When a mistake is made, we touched upon this a little bit ago, when a mistake is made and the mistake was created by you made the mistake, being able to say, I made this mistake and I'm sorry about this mistake, that's important. You know, in the city of Appleton, it was the city clerk who did not listen to a directive and not post the video because it was in a recess. But I took that because she made a mistake. But overall, it comes from me. So I have to take it from my employees. I have to. So.
If you're hired for this position and are still with the organization 5 years from now, how do you think the organization will be different?
I hope that in that time, I would have worked with your organization for any of your existing debt that could have been called to lower your net interest on these. That's one area of your financial statements that's pretty clear. You could probably call some of that debt. I hope that I would have been able to help with diversifying different projects, getting a restaurant or two in here. You know, in the city of Appleton, I got them their first Mexican restaurant. And maybe I shouldn't have because I keep eating there all the time now. So I hope it could have brought some of that. I hope to the city council that I could bring understanding about the specific performance and logistics of how your departments work. I think city councils are always stronger when they know how their departments function. And I hope that I could bring some fun. What we do is so tough. Like, we have to be able to laugh a little bit. And I hope that I would have improved that if it was necessary.
What have you done in your current position or previous positions that made a significant difference to the organization for which you believe you will be remembered?
I'm not good at talking about so the difference between getting an MPP or an MBA really is whether or not you want direct recognition for what you're doing. I'm not that way. I was a tenor. We're pretty self-aware people when you're on the stage all the time. So I'm over that phase of my life. But if I had to say the city of Appleton currently, their water plant, they were not gonna have usable water. I was hired on the 26th of September 2019. On my drive from Massachusetts, the city attorney called me to tell me the city rejected its own budget with 36 days to the deadline to finalize their budget. I had to get there, teach them their own budget, disaggregate their budget, relate it to the financial statements, relate it to the chart of accounts so that they can approve their own budget. Then I was told I need a water plant. The water plant's failing. Within a week, I had to go to the state legislator and beg for money and do it really well because we got the PFA bonding for it. So if they remember me for anything, besides the fact that they think I'm a little annoying, it's the water treatment plant and the broadband. These are things that are, you know, with the taxable net tax capacity, or rather the city's tax base. Broadband for a small community like that, it's gonna bring in and stimulate business that they did not have access to before.
Thank you. So during your short visit here and through your research of our community, what are you most excited about?
I'm really excited that your team, your leadership team, you have a lot of qualified people you can rely on. You know, one of the things that I'm very afraid of when I am interviewing for a community is I'm a qualified candidate. I'm good at what I do, and sometimes I'm afraid that councils want you to do too much. They want you sometimes to kind of manage in every single aspect, every single department. You have good people here. You can trust them to do the work. And I'm looking forward to working with a group of equals to really push forward the community as opposed to direct managing every single department. For a city this size, it's just not workable. And so I'm excited to know that I'd be able to trust in the ability of your team here.
Why should the North St. Paul City Council select you as our next
I'm experienced at managing, not just when things are going good. Communities generally hire me when nobody else will go there. The city of Sandusfield, Massachusetts was told by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue that they were inauditable. And when they hired me, that was changed. I've described some of the challenges in my current municipality that I'm running. And as a candidate, you get somebody who knows how to manage through a clear day or through a day that's tough and do it with consistency.
So the last question is, do you have any questions for us?
I do. So I like this. I call it disparity expectation training. So what are yours, some of the successes that the city has had recently that you are most proud of?
I mean, I'll have to say that we're going through I call it a renaissance right now. We've got about $100 million in projects that are going on. I think we're pretty proud as a city and council at this time that we have a lot of new development going on within our city.
Fantastic.
I would say, you know, in addition to that, we see kind of this new transition where you have a lot of residents that have been here for multiple generations, half a decade plus, and then you have this melding of new families coming in. So it's in this really nice transition phase where, you know, we're learning about each other, and we're going to have, you know, opportunities to move forward together in this new development. So.
I like our small town atmosphere, you know, we're close to the bigger city, St. Paul, Minneapolis, but it's just something about our town, and we have great volunteerism, and people show up for things and want to help, and I'm pretty proud of that fact. Thanks.
Yeah, I think, what makes me proud of our city is what makes us kind of unique in that we do have a downtown. We have seen a lot of new development, a big project in downtown, but we also have a lot of great businesses that have been here for a long time. And we have had a lot of people that have lived here for a long time, and I think there's reasons why that is. We've got great park systems, we've got very decent schools, and the proximity to, larger municipalities, so St. Paul, Minneapolis, we're far enough away, but we're still close enough to all that stuff, so I think that's just kind of it's hard to describe, but as someone who's lived here his whole life, and, just something about that keeps you here, I guess.
I think council's really addressed the majority of the things that I had on my list. The only thing I would like to add is I think the residents that live here are proud. They're proud of the community they live in. They're proud of the changes that have been made. And they're just proud to call North St. Paul home.
That's great. I'm going to give you some free services. In speaking with your leadership team, the same question was asked. And one of them is very proud of the customer service, dedication of the staff, maintenance to professional standards. Your police chief is proud of the implementation of policies with the use of technology to make them competitive and comparable to other cities. Your public works director is very proud of the work and the tone that has shifted in the public works department. So this disparity training that we just did together, that's what I'm good at. I know how to let you know what your staff needs.
All right.
I just had one clarification question. We're jumping back to your second question. When you mentioned something about 2,000 hours of PTO time, was that you or the clerk you were
The
with?
clerk,
Okay, it's not you, the clerk
not
you were
me,
with.
no.
Okay, all right.
The clerk,
thank you.
and so that city, they were a board of selectmen structure. Massachusetts, they have open meeting plan structure government, so there's no real separation council manager. And the chair of that board, who was a reference that I used, she's great, but she was wrong about one thing. That person wasn't resistant. That person was just tired and didn't know when they could take a break. So I had to build up the trust so she would let me help her.
All right, thanks for clarifying
No
that.
problem.
All right, Willie, well, thank you very much, and wish you luck, and we'll let you know a little bit later, I guess. Thank you.
Very much. Yeah.
Yes, you can hang on to that. How long did it last, the first one? It's like,
4:45.
yeah.
We have one in Wasika where you got to hold it while you're talking.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Welcome.
Welcome, welcome. We got a few minutes, so I'll kind of small talk.
How we doing?
How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's good to be here.
Going to a wedding on Saturday.
I was kind of wondering if I'd get asked about that. Yeah, wedding on Saturday. Okay, yeah, I'll be there. My wife and I will be there. Got the hotel room ready to go. I was wondering, because I know Petey's in the wedding, so I was kind of curious.
Is this out of town or in town?
It's,
Got it? Yep,
it's in a barn. Everyone's getting married in a barn now.
that's the new thing.
That's where, my son and your daughter-in-law.
Okay.
Snappy today.
When is that one?
August 13th.
Okay, well, you got a little time.
Well, yeah, I gotta wear beige and keep my mouth shut. Although I did give them some suggestions and they took it, well, I'm the mother of the groom. And I wrote a hefty check, so it's not like, you don't do the rehearsal dinner or the booze, you're doing like a lot now.
Yeah.
So you wanted some extra stuff, I said, "Here." And they're paying for most of it.
That would be a good time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you.
Oh, I opened it up, yeah. Mr. Mayor, how long have you been out of the liquor store business?
Since September.
Oh, so just recently?
Yep.
Okay, I better.
What's the ground rules?
Ready. Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Mike Anderson. Mr. Anderson is the third candidate of 4 candidates being interviewed by you as a council. Mr. Anderson will have 45 minutes to answer 19 questions. So we just put an incumbent on Mr. Anderson to stay concise in his answer or to use his time as wisely as he can. And we ask that if each of you go around and introduce yourself. Mr. Anderson, know how long you've been on the council, and then we can proceed in a round-robin format of answering the questions.
Perfect. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
Mayor Furlong, been on the council, city council for 10 years and mayor for the last 3 years.
Hello, my name is Lisa Wong. I am a newer council member as of 11 months, so welcome.
Andy Peterson, and it's my 3rd term.
Scott Thurston, this is my second term.
Tim Cole, I started. Lisa and I are the newbies.
Oh, nice to meet you all.
Great, Mike. So we have 19 questions. I'll start with the first one, and we'll go kind of in the circle here. And then I think you have plenty of time, so go ahead and relax, and I'll give you the first question here. Please tell us what interests you about this position and highlight key qualifications that make you the best person for this job.
Well, what interests me about this position is it's a city manager role. It's a goal of mine to become a city manager since I went back to school. You know, I grew up, born and raised North St. Paul, so I feel invested already in the community. I feel like I could come in with my feet on the ground running and fit in with the organization. I have the education, the qualifications in Wasika. You know, I've been the assistant to the city manager there for 5 years. Prior to that, I was the city clerk and administrator for the city of Birchwood Village. While I was there, I was kind of a one-man show. I did the finances, planning and zoning, code enforcement, contract management, and everything with the city council, the packets, the minutes. In Waseca, my position started off as like special projects and things that the city manager asked me to do. It kind of morphed into a city clerkish position. In 2018, the city clerk retired, and I absorbed most of those roles. So I still interact with the city council. I sit in on all the meetings. I present items on the agenda. I take the motions, I do the minutes, the packets. So all those plus I sit in on all the director meetings, department head meetings. I sit in on the budget sessions with staff and the council. So I think that's kind of a well-rounded version of why I am interested and qualified for this position.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Anderson. Number 2, please describe your leadership and management style.
I like to think I've got like a hybrid management style, democratic and delegative. I think when making decisions, it's important to involve or include all those that it impacts, department heads and their staff. Depending on the situation, you're going to want to sit down with that department head and maybe get their input on what might happen depending on, the decision or the pros and cons of the situation. And sometimes you need to be, just delegate the answer to the department head or their staff. If it's a lower level decision that needs to be made and it's not a council or a city manager level decision, then you got to trust and depend on your staff to do so.
Third question, describe how you would build trust with the city council and staff.
Well, I think I'd start off by just, kind of meeting city council members, sitting down with them, figuring out how they like to work, what their goals are, what I can do to help. Same thing with staff, sit down, meet with them. Leading, just kind of showing by working, I guess. Leading by example, I think is a good way to build trust, and showing my leadership qualities, I think would be, is the way to build trust, so to say.
Please describe your involvement in the budgeting and financial processes of your organization, as well as your experience with long-range financial planning.
In my current role? Well, it seems like we're doing budget all year long. We typically start with staff meetings and department meetings in like April or May. We present those department budgets to the finance director for review, then the city manager and the finance director will get together and talk about them. Then we'll regroup in June, and then we'll start having work sessions with the city council, as many as they want at their discretion, however they feel comfortable. And then that goes, June, July, August, and then up until the preliminary levy in September. Now, the long-term planning, I sit in on the capital improvement plan for the city of Waseca and the street construction plan that we have. Other than that, when I was with the city of Birchwood Village, I just sat down with the mayor in one fell swoop and we went over the budget for hours. And it was kind of just line item by line item, which got approved. But that is, my involvement in terms of budgeting.
What was the most creative initiative or project you completed in your current or last role?
Well, I would say when in the city of Waseca, when we started, we have a Heritage Preservation Commission. And there has just been talks and whispers about trying to get our downtown or some of the buildings on the National Historic Register. So when I started and I was the staff liaison for the HPC, I kind of started the process. I wrote a grant to get someone to kind of write the nomination to the state. I led, I don't want to say I led the HPC, but I kind of pushed them in the right direction from start to finish. Halfway through, our HPC wasn't happy with our consultant. So we did it in-house. Me and an administrative assistant along with our HPC continued the process. They kind of wanted to quit when it got hard with the state, but we continued to push through. And after 2.5 years, we got our downtown district our commercial district on the National Historic Register of Historic Places.
Congrats, thank you.
You can take a water drink if you want. All right. Question number 6. Describe a time when you made a mistake at work. How did you deal with this situation, and what was the outcome?
When I was with the city of Oakdale, I sat in on a department head meeting in place of my supervisor that was gone. And the parade had just finished, and my house at the time was on the parade route on 15th Street for Summerfest, Oakdale Summerfest. And at that department head meeting, I got asked what I thought about it. And the cleanup crew at the end came through like right after the last float, and they had backpack blowers. And they were blowing crap all over the place, sand and trash and stuff. And there were still parents and kids trying to get back to their cars. And I had flat out said that in the director's meeting. And it didn't sit well with the Public Works director. So, once the next time I went down to the Public Works building, he confronted me in front of all his staff. It wasn't pleasant. I just kind of explained to him why I said it and what's supposed to be said in a department head meeting is supposed to stay in a department head meeting. So it wasn't nice of her, it wasn't good of him to kind of say that in front of his staff, but, we kind of talked it out, worked it out, and then next year at the next parade, there were different results at the end.
Thank you.
All right, I'm on question 7. Do you consider yourself to be a proactive person? Provide an example of a time when you were proactive in solving a small problem before it turned into a major problem.
That is a good question. Okay, well, down at the city of Waseca, I do our licensing, and one of the council members is a brewer in town. And there's a parking spot out that was being talked about, and it had the angle view, obstruction view. And we could kind of see that he wasn't going to be happy that we were going to try to eliminate parking spots because there's limited parking downtown in Waseca. And as a business owner, parking spots mean everything, even though if it's just one on the side of the road. And we knew that he wasn't going to be happy that we were going to try to eliminate the space that was 3 or 4 spaces down from his building. So I'd like to say I took it upon myself during the licensing period to talk to him that this is going to be coming up. This is going to be on the council agenda. The engineer is going to be at the meeting, and he's going to recommend the removal of the spot. And I felt like it may have calmed, he was at least prepared for it, as he can react in certain ways that maybe you shouldn't during a public meeting. And I do think the outcome, the spot got removed, and I do feel like the outcome, at least he was prepared and handled it well.
Question number 8. Describe the efforts you would take to enhance redevelopment and/or residential growth in the city.
Well, I think starting with recruitment, depending on the development site or the zoning, recruiting certain needs and wants of the city, and then offering you know, you have discussions with the developer or the builder, and in most circumstances, you have to offer incentives. So what that might be, whether it's tax abatement or TIF, or in certain cases, discounts on water and electric. So I think maybe having a plan in place with that, depending, like I said, on the site, would be a good way to go.
There's question 9. How would you reach or serve diverse groups or traditionally underserved populations within our community?
Could you go through that one more time, Mr. Thorson?
How would you reach or serve diverse groups or traditionally underserved populations within our community?
Well, I would maybe start by having some public open meetings. You know, we had some in Waseca, some diversity meetings in Waseca to bring in a speaker. Speakers are good to have to kind of educate the community about, you know, diversity. And I think having that option and letting people learn about that, because some people get uncomfortable in certain circumstances. So having that education, I think, would be a good way to reach that population.
Two-part question. Describe your experience working collaboratively with other units of government or organizations. Then the follow-up is, describe how building these types of relationships benefit the community or organization you worked for.
Well, starting in my days with the City of Oakdale and the Recreation Department, we worked collaboratively with local businesses and the school district. Having that collaboration helped our department put on wonderful public events and programs for the City of Oakdale. With the City of Waseca, you know, we collaborate with the Chamber of Commerce, the county, the school district, and also local businesses. And I think having those relationships, you know, it benefits everybody. It sees that the city's willing to work with outside organizations to deliver the best result to the residents. And, you know, there may be a time where the city's in need, and when you reach out, they're going to help you out because you were there when they needed you. So I think having that mutual relationship is very beneficial.
Question number 11. Describe how you would become involved in the North St. Paul community.
I think starting off with service groups is a good start. Local Lions Club, Rotary Club, outside volunteer groups. You know, getting your name out there. I think being part of the MCMA is huge. You know, you go into events and conferences representing the city of North St. Paul, getting your name out there, kind of, you know, showing them what you're doing. I'd like to use the word bragging about what the city's doing. Maybe getting involved on some of their committees. You know, I've gone to those conferences and I see other city managers that are from other cities, and I think that's good to do. You know, walking around town during the Friday night car show or other recreational events throughout town that the city puts on, I think, you know, that's a good way to get your name out there, get your face out there. I'm not scared to have people know who I am or see my face on TV and come say hi to me on the street. Happy to answer questions about the city anytime. But I think, you know, all those are great ways to be involved in the community.
Thank you. I'm on question 12. Provide an example of how you have been a change agent in your organization.
You mean like implementing something new? Okay. Well, back in May of 2018, when the city of Waseca's city clerk retired and I obtained some of those roles, excuse me, a lot of things have been done the same way for 30 years, including, my prime example is how minutes were taken and how council packets were put together. They're always kind of printed, scanned, they're sideways, they didn't look professional. Simple software upgrade to Adobe and, taking the Word documents and putting them into PDFs and then compiling them on the computer so they look professional. We changed the way the minutes were done from the way I see them in other organizations to the way we do them. They're kind of summary. So instead of 15 pages for residents to read, you get it down to 3 or 4, and I think it's straight to the point. Some of the conversations that there's no action taken doesn't necessarily need to be in the minutes unless that's the wishes of the council, of course, but those are just a couple of ways that I've changed the way things were done in Waseca.
Thank you.
Question number 13. In your current or previous role, what is the most difficult decision you have made, and how did you come to that decision?
Well, one of my first job with the city of Oakdale, I was young, and we had some seasonal staff, and I had found out that one of them was using some illegal substances while doing summer camps. So being kind of fresh out of college and never having to go through an experience like this, I did seek out advice, but then, I had to sit down with this staff member and kind of confront them, tell them what was wrong, and then in the end, I actually had to fire him. And it was the first time in my career that I had to do something like that. It wasn't easy, but it was a great learning experience.
Well, my question 14, describe a situation that you feel demonstrates your integrity and ethical standards.
I like to use this example. When I was in the city of Birchwood Village, we had a resident that came in and he was building a rock wall to kind of help with erosion control in his backyard. And he came in and he went through the planning commission and he got a conditional use permit to put up his rock wall. And it was 3-foot boulders. And at the time, the mayor approached me and demanded that I stop this man from doing his work because he needed a zoning permit. But at the same time, the city code had stated that because he has a conditional use permit, there's no zoning permit required. And the mayor still demanded that I stop this person, but I didn't. I kind of went with what the code said. The city council passed the code, and I did mention to her that no, I'm not going to do that, and I showed her what the city code said. I'm not going to. It's a decision like that I'm going to go with my instinct and my gut because it's, that's what the code says, and that's what the city council wants in the end. I maybe shouldn't have used the word no. I have since learned that, my approach could have been different and I could have handled the situation a little differently, but I think that process kind of, demonstrates that, my integrity.
Home stretch. Last lap down the if hired for the position and you're still with the organization 5 years from now, I turn my mic on. How do you think the organization will be different?
Well, I think that'll kind of depend on council's direction. But, you know, I would love to be here in 5 years. I think, you know, team building and morale within the office are very important to me. I can imagine that it's at a high level right now, but I would like to think in 5 years it would be at an extraordinary level. Services to residents would be at a higher level at hopefully a lower cost. I could see the downtown thriving. I could see, I think I noticed that there's going to be some water tower updates, so we're, you know, that project will be done. We could seek out some grant funding for that. You know, you got great amenities. The parks look great. There could be some, you know, updates in some of the parks that we could pursue. You have a lake in town. You know, all these amenities are great, and I think we could make them, together we could make them better. And I'll keep going, and draw in more. I know the aging population that's been discussed is gonna go to the Sentinel and then the anchor site. But then those empty houses, you know, with upgrades to some of the amenities in town will draw in younger families, and then we'll just keep the cycle going.
Thank you.
Number 16. What have you done in your current position or previous positions that made a significant difference to the organization and for which you believe you will be remembered?
Well, I think some of the changes that I've mentioned about, or in the city of Waseca, in terms of how the council process goes, I think will continue and be, you know, when I ever leave, will continue and help the organization. When I was in recreation, I implemented and coordinated a number of events that are still going on today. And whenever I see that, you know, I always look back in their newsletter and see what's going on. And the one that still goes on is called the Family Fun Inflatables. It's every September. It's one where you collaborate with the business community. And it just puts a smile on my face because I remember when I was at the park that day and ran the event, and families upon families were there with their kids with smiling faces. And, you know, that kind of stuff is important to me. And I hope I can bring that here to the city of North St. Paul.
All right, Mr. Anderson, I'm on question 17. During your short visit here in the city of North St. Paul, and through your research of our community, what are you most excited about?
Well, again, potential. Leading North St. Paul, redevelopment, reuse. You know, there's sites still out there that can be done. You know, being a part of the organization just excites me. I don't need to keep saying it, but, you know, I grew up here, I was born here, and that just excites me enough to be sitting in front of you right now. And that ownership and the personal ownership to, you know, the city of North St. Paul is greatly important to me, and, you know, I would just very much love to work for you guys.
Why should the North St. Paul City Council select you as the next city manager?
Well, I have the education, I have the experience. You know, I'm ready to lead. I'm a person that's very decisive. You know, I'm approachable. Transparency is huge to me. You know, I think having, you know, what I've talked about with my background, education and past experiences, that I'm overall rounded, I think, better than other candidates. And I did maintenance in college, worked in recreation. I've done planning and zoning, code enforcement, finance, city council items. I've done clerk stuff. So I think having that blend of background helps me, you know, when meeting with other department directors or other staff, I can kind of see where they're coming from. If they have a certain issue or question, I think I can help them out better than candidates or that might just have administrative background solely.
Okay, last question. Is for us.
I have a few. What is the city council's preferred method of communication?
To me, it's not only individual, but it could be text, email. I mean, it's all, there's a lot of communication now, and I think each one of us have different ways of how we communicate with each other. So to me, it'd be, sit down, text, phone call, all that.
For myself, I would say to call or text, but, one thing I would like to see for the council as a whole perhaps is maybe more regular updates on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis, maybe in a newsletter format or a memo, something along those lines.
I'd like to be kept in the loop too, instead of hearing things out there, I'd like to hear it from you. And I think either way, text or email or,
Has any of the previous city managers had like a manager's report? Because that was something that I've done with Waseca, but since our new city manager started kind of fizzled out, but I used to recommend it. You'd get reports from each department and send out a manager's report either weekly or bi-weekly or whatever the council wishes.
It's actually been hit and miss.
Okay.
We'd go on a string of getting them, and then pandemic takes over, and I mean, it just, a lot of issues come up where, maybe the city manager gets busy. But yes, we always enjoyed getting those updates, whether it's weekly, monthly,
Okay.
or individual talks.
Well, for me, it depends. I mean, I would much prefer to meet face-to-face, kind of that old school method. If that doesn't work, phone calls, but obviously emails and text work. But, if there's ever, there needs to be a level of trust that the communication is authentic, and that in that case, if a situation were to arise where there's no trust, then I would certainly prefer emails. That way things are documented and whatnot. But, obviously, I think we're all pretty flexible in how we communicate, and I would echo that. That's something that I certainly enjoy getting somewhat regular updates, but it's kind of understanding that you kind of get into things, and that generally tends to fall to the wayside. But that would certainly be something I would look forward to, is having an established regular update.
Along the line with Councilmember Peterson, I'd love to hear it internally first before you hear it from the neighbor or the person you happen to run into on the car show, and not necessarily be the last one to the party to find out the information. So I think going forward, we just need some type of weekly, bi-weekly, whatever communication. But other than that, I guess it would depend on the urgency. Depends on, if you're just looking for a quick question or guidance, that could be a text or, an email, but phone calls work really well for me.
Very good, thank you. So on the website, I've kind of seen what your guys' budget cycle is like and how involved you are. Are you happy with the budget timeline? Would you like to be more involved, less involved? Thoughts?
Yep, so I would say that, we try to start as early as possible. Again, I think we kind of started May, June, and start really get heavy into it into July and August, and then kind of wrap up, later in the year. But yes, we'd like to be a part of that, definitely be a part of that cycle, that when it starts and then to the very end.
Agreed.
You know?
I think also our current finance director has expressed to the desire to expound on the timeline too, to be a little bit more inclusive and provide more opportunities for engagement.
What does the council foresee as goals and challenges for the year 2022?
To me, it's, let's get rid of this, let's get rid of COVID and get back to normal. I mean, that's, to me, it's been, you know, a hard couple of years. And as we get out of this, getting back to normal, what does that new normal, you know, look like? To me, that's exciting times for us, you know, should be good times for us to move on.
You know, with everything that's going on in development, you know, it's on track, it's doing well. I think looking forward, you know, what other opportunities may arise, and then just kind of taking a look at, you know, how things have been going, because we have had many interims. So just kind of making that readjustment as we transition into that new phase.
Yeah. Ditto your remarks. You know, the morale, I think the morale is good right now. We've gone through some tough times, and it's good now, and I want to continue that. And then with like the redevelopment, I just don't want everything just to stop and say, oh, we're just a status quo. I mean, we've got to keep moving and, you know, keep engaging in whatever kind of redevelopment comes our way, or just be, you know, proactive and that kind of thing. That's all I have.
I'd say I'm just looking forward to some consistency. I mean, kind of into your last question too about the budgeting process. I mean, we've had some turnover in finance department with finance. We're on a third finance director, and I believe it's 3 years now. And, you know, with the changeover in the city management, everyone's got different styles, everyone's got different approaches. And, you know, it's just that looking forward to some regular consistency and some long-term consistency.
And again, primarily the same thing, just getting back to a new normal. The city's had to delay, postpone, or cancel community events to bring people together, whether it be through Parks and Rec. You know, the car show had slowed down for a while. We've got, you know, that's now back, but, you know, trick or treating and through the parks and some of the things that we've had to give up. But the other thing is just, you know, the continue the redevelopment to build on Councilmember Thorson's comment. We're putting a ton of new residents in here. We just need to make sure that they have what we offer, what they want when it comes to revitalizing the rest of downtown, and make sure that we're putting the right businesses in place, the right, you know, types of things. So to build on Councilmember Peterson is don't stop.
I guess I'll follow up with kind of one I want to know type of question. What do you like best about serving the residents of North St. Paul as a council member?
Ooh, I'll leave it up to council members.
Mayor and council member.
Oh, okay, there we go. To me, I started out in Park and Rec, you know, and that to me was very exciting. At that time, there wasn't, we needed a lot of work within our park system, and I, as being part of that team, we were able to start updating our parks, get a park fund, and to me, it's exciting to see things that benefit our community and that the people actually embrace that benefit.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying, you know, getting to know how the city government works here as opposed to other places. And then most importantly, I think being able to meet more people, engage with the residents, and just kind of explore the life that's here, and then find next steps and you know, what do people really want, and being able to be that voice for them.
Yeah, I have about the same background as the mayor. We were on Park and Rec together, and to see our parks grow, and like we had really dilapidated equipment, and now everything is, I mean, it continues to improve upon them. And I just like helping people. I'll take the questions, it's 20 below at Holiday. If they have I mean, I'll, I mean, I can't promise anything, but at least I can look into it. And I think that's important, because we have a great community. And I just like to engage with all our citizens.
Yeah, I guess that citizen engagement, and I think the part that I enjoy the most is helping educate people on how processes work. Because I think I'd say the vast majority of people are kind of disconnected and uninformed on how things work, but something that happens that brings them down here, and they're not familiar with processes and policies, and just working with them on pointing them directions on how things work, and then them kind of realizing that there's just more to it than just my one problem for me and how I'm viewing it, and kind of opening up that conversation is something that I get some enjoyment out of.
I guess, started on the Park and Rec Board. You know, there's just a whole lot of positives and benefits that come out of the Park and Rec. It's a lot of interaction with the community. It's a lot of smiling kids. It's a lot of, you know, community events. That to me, just the whole engagement piece is you know, the piece that drives me. And the other aspect, and my mom said it to me several times, you can't complain about Sunday school teacher if you're not willing to teach Sunday school. So, you know, I'm here, I'm out there, I'm approachable and reachable, and I like to be able to deliver that.
Yeah, thank you. I love how you talk about Park and Rec, because that's where I started my career, and I'll always have a soft spot for that, so. I've kind of answered some of my questions while we talked earlier. Are there any other further questions you might have for me?
Any
I might have a,
questions?
You're obviously going to move back to home, right? Or you're going to do a Waisika? That'll be kind of a,
I don't live in Waseca.
oh, okay.
I live in Savage with my
Oh, that's,
my wife right now and
Okay,
children,
gotcha.
but to answer your question, anything's negotiable.
oh, no, average is fine.
I know.
All right, Mike, well, I appreciate it, and good luck, and we'll wait to hear a little bit later.
Thank you. I just, one last comment, kind of going back, thank you for the opportunity to sit in front of you tonight. I would love to kind of come full circle, grow up here, graduate here. I know some of my answers probably couldn't have been better, but, you know, I love the community, and I'd love to represent you as the next city manager of North St. Paul. So thank you for your time.
Appreciate it, Mike. Thank you. Mark, give us the game plan.
Alrighty. Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is your fourth and final candidate, Mr. Kevin Kress. Mr. Kress will have 45 minutes to answer 19 questions. And prior to starting, we just asked you if you would please go down and introduce yourself and how long you've been on the council, and then use that round-robin format to ask all 19 questions.
Welcome, Kevin. Mayor Furlong, and I've been on the council for, as a council member for 10 years and then 3 years as mayor.
Hi, Kevin. My name is Lisa Wong. I've been on the council for a whole 11 months.
Kevin, I am in my third term as council.
Scott Thorson, I'm on my second term.
Tim Cole, Lisa, and I started at the same time.
So welcome, Kevin. So you'll get the 19 questions and you have plenty of time. So just relax and I'll start out with the first question and we'll kind of work around a circle here and we'll just take our time and relax and enjoy the ride, I guess. All right. So question number 1. Please tell us what interests you about this position and highlight key qualifications that make you the best person for this job. I think at the mic. Sorry. Sorry about that. If you want to start it
No.
over.
I don't know if it did anything. Is that any louder? There we go. So anyway, it's back to what I was saying. What interested me in the position is just, I know the community well. You know, I've played a lot of baseball here, softball here. I've fished a lot of the lakes. I've checked out a lot of the trails. I feel like I have a very good connection with what you have going on here. As far as what qualifies me for this position is, I think I have the greatest depth that you've seen here, whether that's water, sewer, public works, parks, trails, you name it. I probably had an opportunity to participate in any one of those fields for the city. For me, what I find interest in is, I think with this city, I have the opportunity to build a team, to create a network and atmosphere for this council and community that can really get things done. Moving forward, on task, set expectations, achieve those expectations. Whether it be the comprehensive plan, a capital improvement plan, a surface plan, engineering standards, whatever that might be. I feel like I have the depth that you need as a council to really get those things done. I think I have the right leadership style, the right management style. I thought I fit in well, in this last 5 minutes with your staff. I thought we connected very well in there. Can you repeat that one more time for me, just to make sure I cover it all?
Yep. Tell us what interests you about this position and highlight key qualifications that make you the best person for this job.
Yeah, as far as qualifications, I think my leadership and management style is probably at the top there. I'm a collaborator. That's my leadership style. As far as management, I would say I'm probably situational, which could also be defined as a leadership model. What that means is sometimes you're a delegator, sometimes you're a coach, sometimes you're the team, and the list goes on and on. It really depends on what situation or scenario is on the table, whether that's with the council or with staff. That's going to change with each project that you have. And I think that's really important to remember. You need to involve your staff, value what they're saying to you, that you're bringing to the council, and use your team, because looking at you 5 up there, that's a team. You need to be able to work together, communicate with each other, and be open and honest with each other. I noticed your pillars down there. That's a great model. I remember when you put that together, and that's the kind of stuff that brought interest to me. That's why I'm here tonight. I'm appreciative of that.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm on question 2. Please describe your leadership and management style.
Well, I kind of already went over that a little bit, but my true leadership style is collaborator. I'm a big teamwork type of person. I leverage my department heads. I leverage the council. There might be certain things that you guys are really good at that I need to leverage, whether that's finance, maybe it's human resources, maybe it's development, whatever that is. I find that, quite often you can use both. You know, sometimes that means a subcommittee. You know, sometimes that means a council retreat. You know, where's our focus at? Are we on the same level? Do we have the same interest? As far as management, I describe mine as situational, excuse me. And I tried to describe that a little bit. It means, you know, delegating, supporting, coaching, the list goes on forever. But I'm a true team player. I try and get to know my staff and my council on both a work and professional level to understand, you know, why they have the thought process they have, what value they can bring to any given conversation you're having. I find true value in that. So that's me.
Okay, Kevin, the third question is, describe how you would build trust with the city council and staff.
Well, I think it kind of goes back to what I was just talking about. You got to get to know your council. I like to do a retreat, honestly. I think I find the most value in doing that. And what I mean as a retreat is you get out in the community, you go visit parks, you go on trails, you check out road sections, and then you come right back here and you have a little workshop and you talk about what you saw. What did you like? What didn't you like? What are the priorities for that year coming in? Because with that information, I can take it back to staff. Here's what the council wants. Here's what they align on. Here's what they don't align on. Here's something that maybe 5 years from now, we could check it out. But it kind of sets the stage. And it's a great tool for the start of the year. Get out in your community, you know, get to know people, talk to businesses, see who's at the park, start a conversation, you know. And from there, it's a lot of one-on-one sessions. You know, I prefer one-on-one, you know, phone calls, fine. You know, sometimes it's 2 council members. You know, I can't have 3, of course, they'll meet a lot. But it's a lot of, you know, just communication. You know, if you don't have that, everything falls apart.
Question 4, please describe your involvement in the budgeting and financial processes of your current organization, as well as your experience with long-range financial planning.
Sure. So currently with the city of North Oaks, we have I would say a smaller budget, just because we're not full service. We have a homeowners association that covers a lot of the streets, the parks, the trails. That's all privately owned, which adds a layer of complexity to everything we do in North Oaks. Our budget typically ranges about $3 million, I would say. Most of the budget is processed by me. The deputy clerk and I work collectively, you know, and I have 2 other women at the front desk that I also involve them. They do most of the, you know, permitting, office supplies, and again, you use your team. What do we need? You know, but you also have to leverage the council, and I'm sure you guys are aware of that. You have some workshops, you look at your capital plan, your comp plan, whatever it might be, and you gotta figure out, well, how much levy do we have? What's the comfort level of the council with the levy? You know, if I went in full bore, is that 10%? Is it 5? Can I make it 0? You know, what's the goal of the council? Well, a lot of that you figure out at your retreat. The goals of the council. You know, it starts off day 1, January 1. As far as capital planning, North Oaks doesn't have a lot of that, just because they don't have the streets and the parks and the trails and things like that. Clearwater had all of that. So with Clearwater, we had a half-cent sales tax account that funded our parks and trails. I did all 5 parks they have, plus some bonus parks. We put in an archery park, collaborated with Wright County, put that in. The sewer authority had tons of capital planning, pumps, bags, you know, heavy equipment, tool cats, you name it. You know, those budgets ranged anywhere from 4 million plus. You know, just it kind of depended on the council and the resources and what they wanted to see on any given year. But typically, the capital plans we would put together, you know, we'd show the council the 5-year, but it was actually 20 or more that we would forecast out. Sometimes we would show them, but more times than not, it was internal. You would work with your department heads and kind of give them a scale of, here's some of the things we need, maybe a fire truck, you know, a piece of equipment, road projects coming up. fog seals coming up, whatever it might be. And hopefully, you get some input from the council and understand the types of things they want to see done. Because that does dictate, what you're going to do in your budget. You have your pretty standard things, your staff and your equipment and things like that. But that capital planning can really make or break you, especially when it comes to streets and bigger, more expensive things that the city undoubtedly is going to bond for. $50,000 a year or more, depending on the price of the bond. So that's been our process. So I've been involved in a lot of different capital funding with different things because there's been so many departments. We've had golf, we'd had ambulance, we had public works, we had fire, we had police. I've had my hand in on all of that. So.
What's the most creative initiative or project that you've completed in your current or past roles?
Most creative. I would probably say, well, honestly, I have a couple. This is one of my favorites. So we had a neighborhood park. It had kind of a vacant concrete wall. I called up the local school and said, I want all your students over here. So we had all the students come, and we did handprints all over the wall. So it was a good community effort. We had people out there. Turned out fantastic. It's just a little neighborhood park. I also liked the archery park we did with Wright County. It was just a vacant rest area. Call up the Wright County Park and Rec director, and I said, I got an idea. What is it? Archery range. So we put in 15 targets that I designed with him, and it got, absolutely hammered that year. They're still doing it every year. Those are probably the most creative, most fun projects that I've done. I really like the sewer project too. We had bonding money we got from the state. We improved all our SCADA system, new structures, new equipment. It's a Class A mechanical plant. I know you don't see that down here with Met Council, but to me that was a big deal. It's a huge amenity to not only our city, but the neighboring city. So.
Thank you.
Number 6, describe a time when you made a mistake at work. How did you deal with the situation and what was the outcome?
I would say it was probably a couple years ago. We sent the levy to the county as a resolution, and we mix-matched some of the numbers. So it got a little twisted there. Luckily, the county auditor picked it up, so it made it past me, it made it past my finance staff, and it really wasn't that big of a deal. We had to do a new resolution in front of the council, so it was a little embarrassing, to come back to the council and say, hey, we mixed our 9 and our 6 up, and it doesn't work, but I think you gotta own it. I made a mistake. Here's how we fix it, and you move on. I haven't really had any major problems that I can think of that, it's been a huge mistake and you gotta go to the council and basically eat crow, at the council and say, man, my direction was wrong. But here's how we fix it. I haven't run into that yet. I'm sure it'll happen at some point. We're human. But I haven't had that experience yet.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Kress, I'm on question 7. Do you consider yourself to be a proactive person? And provide an example of a time when you were proactive in solving a small problem before it turned into a major problem.
Oh, that's a great question. I can think of a couple of things. Probably some of my favorites were Clearwater. We basically had vacant parkland. Nobody's using our disc golf course. Nobody's using our baseball fields. Nobody's using our football fields. It was like the first year I was there, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. These are huge community assets that totally underutilized. So what do? Get on the phone, I call up St. Cloud Rugby, just up the street. Got a deal for you. Field lease. You know, I think it was $500, $1,000, whatever it was. But the money went right back into the park. So they took over the field, did all the maintenance, all that. Well, what happened was people came out to watch them. You know, they'd watch them practice and play games, and the field's getting utilized, and people are checking it out, and community's coming out there. Well, we did the same thing with the disc golf course. Call up St. Cloud Disc Golf. Got a deal for you. Come here and maintain the field and do this and that. We'll get the new baskets. Well, we did the same thing with the baseball field. Call up CLABA, it's the Youth Baseball Association. Get those kids out here. Get them on this field. Let's use it. Let's get going. It's still going on today. Yeah. Can you repeat that one more time? Just want to make sure I got that all.
Sure. Do you consider yourself to be a proactive person? Provide an example of a time when you were proactive in solving a small problem before it turned into a major problem.
I would consider that a small problem. I mean, nobody really wants to see their fields and their parks and whatnot being unused, but to us, that was a big deal, but it also brought people into the community that are going to your businesses. They're spending money, you know, they're doing everything you want them to do, and that was a big deal for us.
Okay, number 8, describe the efforts you would take to enhance redevelopment and/or residential growth in the city.
Well, as far as redevelopment, I've noticed that most of it's been downtown here. There's been focus on, some market rate housing. There's been focuses on student-built housing, things like that. I know you've started to do, some redevelopment master planning, if you will. I would probably pose back to, that having a discussion with the council, that retreat of what areas are you focused on? Does that align with your redevelopment master plan? Who are you calling for your resources to bring in these designs, or are you just, it's here, come and build here? Because that typically doesn't work. You have to have some players in the game, that you can call, you can get designs. Sometimes the city owns the property and you hold all the cards. You can pick your own developer for it. You can really kind of structure your city the way that you want it to be. You can capture young, middle, old, the whole spectrum. So your housing stock meets the needs of everybody that's in your community. Low, medium, high income. Do an analysis. Where are we losing out on this? I think you really need to strategize not only the areas, but the types of housing that you might not have, that you need. Why are people leaving? Why are people coming in? Has anybody ever analyzed that? I think before you can answer that, you're set for failure. I think you really need to strategize, build a plan, which I understand you have a plan. I'd like to take a closer look at that. And whether it be with WSB or an in-house planner, or whoever that might be, and really set up, whether it's your downtown district, your existing housing stock, what's more important, single-family residential, apartments, what is it that you think you want to have in this community? Because that makes a big difference. It's not just a coverall, and I think you need to know who the players are. A lot of times that's at an EDA or an HRA meeting, maybe it's a luncheon. Maybe you're calling upon 25 developers to come in and we want to see some designs for this. Maybe that means the city holds the property right now. That can be a great option. Whether it's historical or you just want to maintain that corridor and hold all the cards for it. So that would be my tactic with it. Work with the council, work with the staff, really develop a plan. But I think you need to have the right staff in place to do that. I really think you need those resources there.
Question 9, how would you reach or serve diverse groups or traditionally underserved populations within our community?
I think you didn't need to develop programs, similar to what the county does. There's, low-income financing. I know our city here does a lot of that. You have electrical rebates, you have, water and sewer rebates, or different programs that aid people that are in that lower income bracket. You do the student housing, that you're trying to target some of the lower income. You're trying to put the apartments in, that also targets some of the lower income. That's a little more broad there, but you look at the market rate housing, you set it up in a corridor that works well. And you create those programs again, as part of your EDA, your HRA, whatever that is, to incentivize people to come and stay in your city and be comfortable, have the things they need, food, water, safety, housing. And I think that's really important. Could you repeat that one more time? Yeah, we've had a lot of discussions about how you do this. A lot of times that might be going out there, door to door. It might be calling an event here at City Hall, getting to know your community. Where are the impoverished areas, if you will? What areas in our city need our support, and how can we do that? Whether it's through housing, businesses, safety, whatever that might be, I think you need to identify that. A lot of cities do bring in coordinators to have discussions with, those groups of people and figure out what are their needs. Do we have food shelves? Do we have apartments? Do we have resources for these people to be comfortable and live here? And I think that's what you need to focus on.
Question 10 serves itself as a two-part question. Describe your experience working collaboratively with other units of government or organizations. And then as a follow-up, describe how building these types of relationships benefit the community or organizations you work for.
Yeah, excellent. So right now, I think North Oaks is a great example of this, because just about everything we have is collaboration. And I'm going to rattle off about 5 or 6 here. So we collaborate with Lake Johanna Fire for all our fire services. They come in, they service our water systems, our hydrants. They give us that insurance that we wouldn't otherwise have. So that's the service we're bringing to the community, is the fire coverage. In a lot of ways, we operate almost like a township when it comes to fire, because we don't hold the cards. Lake Johanna does, but they provide an excellent service. They have pumper trucks, all those things that a city typically wouldn't have, because you'd have all your hydrants. The other one we have is Ramsey County Sheriff. So we have a 7-party consortium of cities that contract with Ramsey County. We have the only community policing member, I would say. So the way the contract is set up is you have floaters, if you would, that kind of maneuver through each city. Well, we have a community officer, not a CSO, a full police officer that's there. So you have that community presence throughout the community. They're there to, talk with somebody if there's a mental issue, maybe there's a traffic issue, maybe there's something higher level, a robbery or whatever, but we have that. We're the only city of those 7 that have that, and I think there's value in that community policing model. We also partner with Velamo, that's the Vadnais Lake Water Area Management Organization, so we do a lot of water quality work with them. They're involved in a lot of setback requirements for public waters, as I'm sure you're probably aware. We partner with NOAA, I would say, which is the Homeowners Association. They have basically the overlay of the community. They have controls over the streets and the parks and the trails, and that adds a pretty complex layer, to us over there. Just about everything we do there requires some sort of collaboration to get that service to the community. The biggest ones are probably police and fire. We also have JPAs with White Bear Township to service and act as our public works director for water and sewer. On both the eastern and western sides, we have joint powers agreements with Shoreview to provide municipal water, because we don't have any water towers. So you're constantly collaborating with your stakeholders, your partners, your team members, whatever you want to call it, all day, every day, to make sure that level of service is there for a high-quality community.
Thank you.
Number 11, describe how you would become involved in the North St. Paul community.
Sure. Well, I think it starts with the council and the staff, getting to know them, you know, on both a personal and business level. You know, I think that means getting out, talking to some businesses, whether that's part of the EDA, the HRA. I think you need to know who your players are, who the stakeholders, you know, who's got an interest in this. You know, get out in your community, visit some parks, you know, walk the trail, you know, go have lunch with people, you know, figure out what do people like, what do they not like. You know, what's the direction of the council? You know, does the community agree with that? You know, what do they want to see? What are we missing? You know, I think you got to be, you know, visible is really what it comes down to. Be present, you know, go to these events, show up, show that you're interested. You know, be involved. You know, but be active about it. Don't just do it because you think you have to. You know, be a part of the community.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Kress, I am on question 12. Provide an example of how you have been a change agent in your organization.
Change agent. I think for us, a lot of the change that we required was just kind of internal. We needed some better atmosphere, work culture internally with our staff members. We brought in a couple new staff members. We had a lot of team building sessions, not only with the staff, but also the council. We've had a couple retreats here and there. We've had work sessions. We've had field visits that I think were very beneficial, not only to myself, but the staff and the council to get us to work more cohesively. Everybody's on the same page. You know, they're understood, people are listening, you know, they're actively involved. It's not just a free-for-all. And to me, that was a big deal for there, because that can be a big pitfall if you're not driving, whether it's staff or council or both. That can be really difficult to fix. It definitely takes time and the right resources and the right people to come in and have those tough conversations. But I'm pretty proud that we were able to do that.
Okay, Kevin, number 13. In your current or previous role, what is the most difficult decision you have made, and how did you come to that decision?
Probably the most difficult decision, or the most challenging political, if you will, was likely the island field development that we did in North Oaks. As some of you may know, we have a 1999 PUD and PDA that's about 1,000 pages long. That basically dictates the zoning, the height, the number of units, everything for different sections of the city. It's part of the East Oaks PDA. And as part of that process, there were some questions dating back to 2010 that maybe they used their commercial acreage up. Well, on the books, it said they had 5.73 acres of commercial, which equates to 28 units that they could use on any given site. So through discussions with the Planning Commission, the Council, the Natural Resource Commission, the company was encouraged to transfer the 573 to 28 units. So they ended up with a 73-unit apartment complex right off of Centerville there, and it was a very contentious, very political decision. There was questions on, environmental impacts, height of the structure, what have you. And toward the end of last year, there was amendments made to this PDA master plan that allowed for this build to happen. And just maneuvering through the complexities of not only the project, but just the politics of the council and staff and the community, to me was a great challenge. I'm pretty satisfied with the result. I think it's a great product for the city. I think there's still some politicalness that people didn't like, with the project, but I felt like what we brought to the table, meaning me, my city attorney, my engineer, my planner, it showed full spectrum view for the council to let them make that policy decision, the direction they wanted to see for their community, for that matter. And I'm proud of that.
Describe a situation that you feel demonstrates your integrity and ethical standards.
I'd probably point right back to those developments again. That PUD master plan, there's 1,000 different standards in there, and to be able to go to the council with basically a list, a checklist. So what we did when I first came in is I said, there's standards everywhere in here. There's PUD standards, there's zoning standards, there's setback standards, and it's not all in one place, so you're jumping around page to page, and what we did was put it into a simple Excel worksheet. Do they meet the setback? Yep. Do they meet the height requirement? Yep. And we made it very simple for not only ourselves, but the council when they're looking at this package in front of them for a pretty substantial subdivision, that it makes sense. They might not agree with everything the developer's bringing, whether it's design or road or whatever it may be, but unfortunately, if they meet those standards, there isn't much you can do. They're allowed to build it. And that's kind of where it got into political and, challenging staff and professional consultants, and I thought it was a good experience, and I felt like that's exactly what we needed to do. We didn't waver, when maybe a council member asked us to do something, or the consultants didn't agree. We said, here it is, it's black and white. It's still up to you, council, whether you approve or deny, but here's everything we found. And I mean, our memos were probably 300 pages of data and research to the council, but minimized to a checklist. So they could look at both, but there was a quick, 5-second view, or there was, here's our hours of research on this, on why this can happen. Or if there's a problem, here it is, and here's your options to fix it. And I found great value in that. Very tough, position to maneuver in, but I thought we did a pretty good job.
If you're hired for this position and are still with the organization 5 years from now, how do you think the organization will be different?
I'm hoping that you'd be able to accomplish a lot of your, strategic planning, your comp plan modeling, those goals that are established in there. I think it'd be exceptional to look back, on the 5 years that you've taken to get to that point. Maybe it's you got 90% of the streets done. Maybe you fixed a bunch of the parks you wanted done. Maybe it's a new city hall, even though I know this is pretty new. But I would like to reflect back on that and think that you accomplished a lot of the goals that were established, throughout the council's years, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and be happy about it. And the community be happy about it and found value in what you were providing to your constituents. I think there'd probably be some new faces, whether it's on the council or staff, maybe you gained a couple, department heads or whatever it is to accomplish their goals. If it's, redevelopment, if it's parks, it's trails, it's roads, whatever that is, and it's probably gonna be a mixture of that. But I think at the end of the 5 years, that's what your target would be. How many of these goals that we set, our expectations, did we meet? And if we didn't meet them, why didn't we meet them? And get right back to the drawing board to accomplish them.
Thank you.
Number 16. What have you done in your current position or previous positions that made a significant difference to the organization and for which you believe you will be remembered?
Well, I think I'll give a couple of examples. I think with North Oaks, it'd definitely be the developments. Those are some of the most complex subdivisions that I've ever seen, just given the magnitude of that PUD that they have from '99 and the partnerships that they created in tune with that. I think that's definitely the biggest accomplishment there. With Clearwater, I'd probably focus on getting all the 5 parks that they wanted done. That was a huge high priority for them. Getting the Highway 24 bridge done with MnDOT was another massive project. Working through 2 complete street overhauls on both the north and the south of that city were both massive projects. working with the sewer authority, you know, getting a massive plant improvement project put together, getting grant money for it, was another substantial project that brought great value to all those communities, that I can sit back on and feel good about. You know, that we did something that benefited our residents or business owners or just, you know, tourism, you name it. I think all those things hit the mark.
Thank you.
All right, question 17, almost there. During your short visit here and through your research of our community, what are you most excited about?
I'm most excited about the small town feel. That's really something, you know, I have a lot of interest in. Again, it's not necessarily that North St. Paul is small, because I actually think you're, you know, pretty good population size, but you have that feel. You know, you have your neighborhood parks, you have that connectivity where people know each other, you know, and they go to events and they go to the car thing on Fridays, and to me, that's huge. You know, I want to be part of that. The other thing that I find a lot of interest in is it's a full-service city. You know, I can get back into water, sewer, parks, public works, all those things, and bring value to the table, whether it's a department head or the council, just maneuvering through those challenges, I think is a great opportunity. I look at it as a great way to bring my leadership and management style, not only to the staff, but to the council, to get you to that level, whatever that may be, to get you those goals accomplished, whatever they may be, because it's going to change depending on who's on the council.
Number 18, why should the North St. Paul City Council select you as their next city manager?
I think I'd probably focus on my leadership and management style, you know, outside of the accomplishments that I have with any given organization I have. What I see here is I think you need the collaborative leadership style that I can provide. I think you need that, you know, situational awareness when it comes to managing staff, you know, consultants, whatever that may be. I think there's great value in that. And I think your staff and I connected on that level. You know, that's what they want, that's what they need, and I would think the same of the council. Can you repeat that one more time? I think the next thing I would focus on is just the depth I have. All the experiences that I've had pretty much capture every venue that a city may even think about providing. If it's fire, police, ambulance services, public works, parks, water, sewer, all of those things I've been involved in at some level, either personally, you know, done the job, which can bring value to your department heads, or been involved in some kind of project involving any one of those areas of the city. And that's why I feel like I would be the best choice for you.
Last question is, do you have any questions for us?
Sure, I've got a couple. Should I just go ahead here?
Yep, go ahead.
Describe some problems you've encountered as a council and how you resolve them.
Say it again.
Describe some problems you've encountered as a council and how you resolve them.
I would say, for me, I try to bring in all different views to the council, and there's times that we may agree or disagree, and how I, after that, to make sure that we all leave here knowing that we still have respect for each other, even though we don't agree on all the topics.
I think for myself, because I am new and there's a lot of things happening, changing, interim, I'm just trying to get to know the system that we're operating in, how the culture, and also with other council members. So I'm still learning. And so I always just kind of learn, listen, and just kind of absorb for now, but looking forward to more communication and cohesion.
Yeah, just, we've had, you know, some difficulties, as you're aware, and to work through, I mean, we're working through things, and as the mayor said, we do disagree on some things, but we leave here as friends and we respect one another, and I think that's important. Communication is huge. And, you know, there's a lot going on in our city, and I want to continue that momentum. You know, I know like we're developed or we're not. I mean, there's other things that we can do, and I don't want us to stop with anything. I want to just keep moving. Changes are good, so that's all I have.
I think we just need to keep the goal in mind of why we're here. We're here to serve the residents. They've elected us to make decisions on their behalf, and we need to ensure that we're making the best decisions and working together as much as we can as a team to reach that common goal.
I think the mayor and the council members have really all addressed a lot of my topics, other than, along with Councilmember Wong. It's been a smooth year. It's new to me. I don't know what's good, what's bad. This is what I know.
I got a couple more, if that's all right. So what's more important, building new homes or revitalizing existing?
To me, they go kind of hand in hand. What we have going on right now, we have revitalizing going on, but we also have new homes being built also. So I think they do kind of work together, and I think both of them are important right now for me.
As for myself, I do appreciate the blend. We are a naturally occurring affordable housing community, and preserving that and kind of trying to, you know, update our housing stock, but also keep our residents that have been here a while, you know, still in their homes and in community.
We've got some older homes too, and we have to revitalize that, keep us current. With the student-built housing really enhances the neighbors' houses that, you know, the houses are in. So that's a plus. But I think it's both. We need both to be successful and a good community to live in.
It was redevelopment or new development? Yeah, well, yeah, we were pretty built out. I mean, we've had a lot of redevelopment happen quickly. So I would imagine the focus into the future will be naturally redevelopment, because we don't have those large parcels of land that offer any new development opportunities. So I think basically everything we're going to be dealing with moving forward is redevelopment.
So much of the housing took place before I came on board. For me, it's the revitalization of now that we've got the new residents moving in, now that we've improved the stock that we have for homes, what do we do to make sure that we have everything that the residents need to keep them here, so that they don't have to jump in the car and go someplace else?
Got a couple more. What city function interests you the most and why?
Interesting. I mean, city function. I would say the park and rec. I do come from Park and Rec, and what we've done in the last years to update all of our parks and new facilities in some of them. I think Casey Lake was a very good example of a really good addition to that park. It provides a rental facility for our residents. We have small stock in our city. A lot of our houses are very small, and Casey Lake provides a nice rental spot for someone who wants to have a graduation party or wedding or birthday party. So I would say the Parks and Rec.
Could you repeat that one more time, please?
What city function interests you the most and why?
Can you come back to me?
Sure.
Thank you.
The top of my head, I think our electric couple that we're, with the electric, I think it's an important asset. We're lucky to have it. You know, there is revenue to be made, and that's got to be managed correctly. We can't be taking, you know, robbing Peter to pay Paul. So, but I do like being involved with it. And then the park thing too. Class reunion might be at the Casey Park, my future, next summer, so looking forward to that, so thanks.
Yeah, for me, that's an easy one. It's the Friday Night Car Show, and that's more of a collaborative effort with the History Cruisers. I think it's great that a nonprofit organization like that can bring so many people to town, and kind of highlight the best that we have, that we actually have a downtown. They've done an excellent job running that, and to the extent that the city's involved, it's just providing some basic things like Public Works taking trash out afterwards and coordinating the porta potty stuff and barricades and whatnot. But that's, to me, it's just a great thing that brings a lot of people into town that possibly wouldn't normally come here. And it's great that it's expanding despite the challenges we've had with COVID. So that's, to me, hands down, my favorite.
For me, there's two parts. First off is the Park and Rec, and the other one is the newly created Arts and Culture. It's the collaboration of bringing the community together, gives people a reason to be together, to be out, to talk to others. It just, again, brings that hometown feel.
You got time.
You didn't come back to me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would say definitely Parks and Rec and Arts and Culture Commission. I feel lucky to be on that as a liaison, and the energy is there. The residents are super engaged. They are, taking it to a whole nother level. And then I also find the city function of us being having our own utilities. I think that's just really unique in the setting, so in the urban area. So, thanks.
That's a very good question. To me, it's the revitalization, what's going on right now. And as we get through the pandemic, so the next couple of years is how we're coming out of the pandemic, and then all the revitalization that's going on right now within our downtown, and all the other the new housing that's being built. So
Yeah, close to that in that, yes, revitalization, but balancing gentrification and that raising, costs of living and making sure that residents across the income spectrum can live here.
Infrastructure, we've got some bad roads, and we could do a lot of improvements on that, and it's gonna cost money, but it needs to be done.
Yeah, I agree. Capital improvement plan, sticking to that, and the Highway 120/36 interchange.
Just reshaping the city, what's the revitalization look like? What's the housing stock look like?
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, if there's nothing else, really appreciate you having me in tonight and thankful to have the opportunity. Appreciate meeting you all
Thank you.
tonight here.
thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Thanks. got us.
Okay, we're ready, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll pick our top two candidates. For me, my number one candidate is John Stark, and my number two is Kevin Kress.
My number one selection is John Stark, and my second selection would be Kevin Kress.
My two are John Stark and Kevin Kress.
Mine would be Anderson and Kress.
Mine would be John Stark and a coin toss for number two, depending on where council wanted to take. I think they both had very interesting and different skill sets to bring forth. So I would go Stark and Anderson.
So according to my simple math here, there is, you had 4 votes for candidate Stark.
Yep. So we'll
That's it.
make a motion for, do I have that motion,
It's
or?
on the
Yes.
bottom of the,
Bottom of the schedule there, somebody can maybe have it.
yeah, right.
Oh, that one, okay, got it. Okay, the motion is to offer the position of the North St. Paul City Manager to and negotiate the terms of employment with John Stark. This action allows the negotiation team to negotiate the terms and eliminates the need for additional council meetings. The final terms of employment would be officially acted upon at a future council meeting. So the motion is to offer the position for John Stark.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Wong. Second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? John Stark is our top guy.
All righty. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council for this long process that we worked our way through. Hopefully, the light is near the end of the tunnel. I will now work with Councilmember Wong and Councilmember Cole and as part of the negotiation team. And we'll be bringing back a sample contract after we're able to work out, hopefully with terms with Mr. Stark. If there's anything that's outside too far, we'll definitely be coming back, but hopefully we'll be able to work as that as a team. But ultimately, you as a council will be approving the final contract.
At the next council meeting.
That is correct, at the next, soon as council members' meeting as possible. So hopefully we'll get it done before your 7th meeting.
Okay.
But we'll be working on over the weekend, so as of tonight, I'll be calling all the candidates and then be laying out terms with John Stark. And then we're working on through whatever it takes to get it done. Most likely the candidate will need to talk to spouse and making sure that everything works. But the goal is to get this done as soon as possible. Yes, sir.
So, assuming that, you know, he's gonna accept the position, but in the event that he doesn't, is it pretty obvious that our second choice was unanimous in that, or not unanimous, but it was Kevin Kress? So how does that work?
Sure. What I would do is if we're unable to successfully negotiate a contract with Mr. Stark, I will contact each of you to see if you want to go down to the next candidate.
Okay.
So I will not automatically do that without contacting you to see if that's your wishes. I've seen this appears direction-wise would lean that way, but I want to make sure that that's 100% clear.
So it's not gonna involve having another meeting?
That is correct.
I was just concerned about that if it would slow the process. And that I'm assuming when you call the candidates, you're not saying, well, you're not, you've already said that too, but you're not saying you're not the second or third choice. You're just saying the council's made an offer and we appreciate you interviewing. But it's nothing's final yet?
That is exactly right, what I say, yeah, but until the candidate, accepts those terms, and ultimately when the council approves the contract, then it is. So one of the things we'll have to talk about a starting date with that person, and traditionally, a lot of candidates won't have the starting date until they know the council approved it. Yeah, it's very helpful, you as a council approving that on a 5-0 vote for the candidate. A lot of candidates, that'll be the first question they will ask, is what was the vote? So it's nice for me as a consultant to be able to say it was a 5-0 vote for, for John Stark.
Thank you for your work.
Well, thank you. We're on the home stretch here, so thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
So motion to adjourn,
So moved.
moved by Councilmember Cole,
Second.
second by Councilmember Wong. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.